Hot cross buns, hot cross buns, 1 a penny, 2 a penny.
Hello PKU Fam and welcome to PKU Plates. Today's video we are going to be making hot cross buns. So I'm not a big fan of fruit and I don't think I've ever had a hot cross bun for this reason. I've recently discovered you don't just get fruit-filled hot cross buns. So I decided that I was going to try and make myself some chocolate and caramel hot cross buns and see how we get along. Now, whenever I try and experiment with PKU baking, it never goes to plan. So this is a complete experiment, but fingers crossed for this one because I think it could taste amazing and why not? So what I'm actually going to do today is I'm going to make 2 batches of the hot cross buns. I'm going to split each batch in half, and with the first batch I'm going to do half fruit filled for Archie and the other half is going to be chocolate, a mixture of chocolate and the fudge toffee caramel. I've got a couple of ingredients to work with so we can mix and match them, and the difference with this second batch is going to be that I'm going to play around with the amount of water in the recipe. I'm not taking away any water, I'm just replacing it with other things. So the recipe that I'm using today is, or loosely using, is Fate hot cross buns from the Fate Special Recipes book, and if you've got that and want to check it out, it's on page 164. I will post my recipe, ingredients, etc. below in the description, so check that out as well. I have tried to have a look at lots of different recipes for these hot cross buns, both low protein and normal, just to compare and see how I can make this experiment work. And let me tell you, it's quite hard to find a recipe for caramel hot cross buns. So this is a complete experiment. I'm just making it up as I go along, and let's see what happens. To the kitchen. So it always gets a little messy whenever I'm baking, so first things first, apron on and clean hands. Now, get your ingredients together. We need 500 grams of low protein flour. I'm using the Fate all-purpose mix. And also remember to turn on your oven, it's 200 degrees. So you also need demerara sugar, it's 75 grams. A pinch of salt, a packet of yeast, and a teaspoon of ground mixed spice. And always remember to read through the recipe first, just to make sure you've got everything. So once you've got all the ingredients together in the bowl, give them a good mix round. I left out the mixed spice for this first bit because I wanted to split the dough in half, so I add that a little bit later on. But next up you need 50 ml of oil, which I measured in a little baby cup, one of Archie's cups. I recommend that you keep a baby bottle or cup like this for the smaller measurements. There are a lot of baking recipes that require like 10-20 mils, so make sure you've got a measuring jug that can measure small amounts. You also need 420 mils of very warm water, so I used half of boiled water and half cold water just to get it to the right temperature. Once you've got the water right, you add the oil into the water, and then you will add that into your dry mixture and take an electric whisk if you have one, if not a balloon whisk, and give it a really good whisk up until it is silky smooth. Should take about a minute. and it should look a little something like this. So here's where I split the dough mixture into 2 parts. So now I'm about to add my ingredients. I'm using moo-free white chocolate buttons and Asda's fudge pieces. So I'm just going to weigh them out. I weighed out an exchange of each. It was 67 grams of the toffee fudge pieces and 50 grams of the white chocolate buttons. It gave you quite a lot to work with. As you can just see there, it's a good balance of dough and chocolate toffee pieces. So give that a good mix together. Make sure that the toffee and chocolate is evenly spread throughout the dough. So now moving on to the second batch, and now I'm going to add in my mixed spice. I used 1 teaspoon as I'd half the recipe, but you can add as much or as little as you like according to your tastes. Gave that a good mix round so it was all mixed in, and now it's time to measure your mixed fruit. I added extra mixed peel as we had some already open. Again, there is an awful lot of fruit there, but it's a good mix of dough and fruit, and I think it's about equal to the amount of toffee and chocolate that we had in the other one. Give that a good mix around. Now it's time to grease the trays. I used oil to grease my trays and just spread it over with a pastry brush. And now we need to measure out our hot cross buns. So you take 120 grams of mix, weigh it out. The recipe calls for you to be within 10 grams of 120 grams. Sprinkle and dust your hands and take out the roll. Make it nice and smooth, a bit more circular, and then pop it on your tray. Repeat this process until you've got all your buns on your trays. Now I showed you my hands briefly there. It's because it said to lightly dust your hands and the dough won't stick to it, because this is a really sticky dough. But unfortunately, even though my hands were lightly dusted, I still ended up with a lot of mixture on my hands. So I had to use quite a lot more flour to keep my hands from sticking to the mixture. And that's the first batch done. So the recipe calls for you to use a polythene bag to cover the rolls in, but unfortunately I hadn't read the recipe until this point and I didn't have one, so I just used cling film instead. This did work for me, so it should work for you too. I'll just slow down the last one for you so you can see how I did it. Now keep these wrapped up in your polythene bag or cling film until they have doubled in size. And while they are proving, we will crack on with the next part of the recipe. For your crosses, you will need 30 grams of flour, 50 ml of water and 10 ml of oil, and you'll need to mix that all together until it is smooth. And then we need to prepare for our sugar glaze, which will go on top of the buns once they are out of the oven. And for that, we require 30 grams of caster sugar and 30 ml of water in a pan. So now that the buns have doubled in size, I'm going to put on the crosses. with a piping bag. I showed you the nozzle earlier, just quite a small one. Really impressed with how these are looking so far. I'm really excited. So that's them in the oven for around 30 minutes until they're golden brown. So this is about halfway through the cooking process and I am super pleased with how these are starting to look. Now before these come out the oven, we need to start cooking the sugar glaze. Bring it to the boil, then down to a simmer 3 minutes before the buns come out. Now for the reveal! Ta-da! So now that these are out and looking glorious, this is the toffee and chocolate ones, we need to get that sugar glaze straight onto them. So I'm just using a pastry brush again and giving them a once over before moving to a wire rack. And here's the second lot. Ta-da! Your traditional fruit-filled hot cross buns. These look a lot better in shape. I'm really impressed with how they turned out. I am now going to cut open one of these bad boys. I'm quite impressed with how the traditional raisin mixed fruit hot cross bun has turned out. They look quite smart. Let me just show you the inside. Ta-da! It looks good, it feels lovely, it smells lovely. Like I said, I'm not keen on fruit, but I think it's going to be quite good. Now, the ones that I made with the chocolate and the toffee are not as neat, but hey ho. They've kind of gone a bit flatter and they grew massively. Let's have a look at the inside there. The dough is bouncy, but as you can see some there where the toffee and that's, I don't know if that's just melted toffee and chocolate or whether that might have messed with the consistency, but we'll give it a taste test in a bit and see how it goes. There's some of this. That's it. Oh. These were reheated in the oven for a few minutes and Archie's was covered in butter. Is that nice? Do you like that? Archie seems to really enjoy these, which I'm super happy about. So I gave him a little bit more for his supper. Told you I was going to make a mess. Hello PKU fam and welcome to PKU Plates. Today's video we're going to be making no.